46 News has confirmed that this is the victim of today's chaotic shooting at a Midtown apartment complex. Neighbors woken up by gunfire that killed Courtney Cox. That shooting happened at the Atlantic House apartment complex, and police say when they showed up, a man on a balcony began shooting at officers. We have learned that man's name is Jarvis Jarrett. He died at the scene. CBS 46's Savannah Louie live in Midtown. In Savannah, you've been talking with neighbors who are still very much impacted by this shooting.
And not just neighbors, but I also did get a chance to speak very briefly with the families of both the victim and the suspect. They are both shocked and devastated. But even the folks who live here, who saw this whole thing unfold on the 21st floor, say the incident just doesn't feel real.
Okay, that's a nice apartment right there, man. Even though, you know, there may be better, but in these cities, these inner cities, they've built a lot of these buildings. I lived in one of these. It wasn't a high rise, but it was a new building. You know, the rent was, you know, you pay about $2,000 for a one bedroom, one bathroom, 720, 40 square feet. Somewhere in there. And you may have a balcony, you may not. I had a balcony, but I lived in one of these. And working class people, you don't really see a lot of people hanging around. People here go to work, they come home and they tired, and they're in the apartment. They walk their dogs. That's how you meet people. People walking their dogs, or people in the weight room, or people in the computer room. Other than that, you don't really see people. People come in, they leave early in the morning, go to work, they come back in the evening, and they in the house. So this is not hood ghetto, even though they do have, in DC at least, they had to allocate a certain amount of units to lower income. And that's when the problem started. But the majority of the units are not in the price range of the average person. Not something that they would readily be wanting to pay. They may pay it because they have to live in the city, but you price out a lot of riffraff in these areas, in these type buildings.
Did get a chance to speak very briefly with the families of both the victim and the suspect. They are both shocked and devastated. But even the folks who live here, who saw this whole thing unfold on the 21st floor, say the incident just doesn't feel real.
Terrifying for me, because then I'm sitting in my bathroom, like, you know, it's one thing to, like, you know, do self-defense if, like, it comes quickly, but when you're sitting there and at any moment there could be someone that climbs in and you have to deal with that, it was harrowing.
A shooting scene on a balcony sending an Atlantic House resident into hiding.
He let off multiple rounds into the building, and that's when I called the police.
The resident, who didn't want his face on camera, says he witnessed a shooting just 3 floors below his apartment.
And I still didn't really believe. I mean, I've been around guns my whole life, and I don't know if the panes are very thick in this building or if, you know, noise traveled weird, but it didn't really sound like a gunshot. But I'm fairly certain it was, and then I went back outside and I saw him wave a gun.
Officers responded to reports of gunshots at this complex around 3:15 this morning. When they arrived, they saw 32-year-old Jarvis Jarrett shooting from a balcony. And there's evidence he was jumping from balcony to balcony before firing a rifle at officers. At least one officer returned fire.
So our man Jarvis Jarrett was jumping from balcony to balcony, firing in the building. I can tell you this, man. This probably started over an argument with this girl. They were arguing. They were having an argument. Got heated. He probably snapped and did something to her, and then was just like, I'm going out like Commando. I'm going out with a bang. Because the one thing about it is, Southern men, we're not really big on taking our own lives. You know, if we want to take our own lives, we'd rather do something to make somebody take our own lives. If you look at the rates across the country, and you look at the pockets where taking your own life is really big, it's a glacier glider thing. It's just the numbers, man. It is what it is, man. And by far, like, they do that a lot, Jack. Some men will, he knew he went too far. He knew he crossed the line. He was like, look, no turning back. I'm gone. And this young lady, and they're saying that this young lady, Courtney Cox, is a attorney. And in these cities like Atlanta, DC, we talk about this a lot on the live stream. Make sure you join me 9:30 on Tuesdays and Fridays. This week I'm not doing it because I'm traveling, but next week we'll be back Tuesdays and Fridays at 9:30 p.m. In these cities, these urban centers, you'll see a lot of sisters like this with Pookies and Ray Rays, for lack of a better term, or brothers with potential, if you want to use that. You'll see that a lot. I see that a lot. Where I'm from. The sisters got the jobs, man. They do. They have the good jobs. They have the education, the certificates to get these jobs. They play the game, kind of like foreigners. I would compare sisters to foreigners. Like somebody from Jamaica or Haiti, or Mexico, or somewhat from there, how they come, or Nigeria, Ghana, how they come to America, and it's all about certificates and education degrees for the sole purpose of getting jobs, not for being smarter than anybody, or they play the game. United States, if you get this piece of paper, you qualify for this job. If you get that certificate, you qualify for this job. You get that. And they just do that and they get that job. And brothers, we haven't figured that out en masse, as a collective. I know your cousin got a good job. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about as a collective. And these sisters right here, like this one, they love brothers, man. They not divested, man. That's why I don't really pay that divestment movement too much attention. They not divested. They not going nowhere. So they attach to the men that, bring the most excitement, bring the most, chaotic, frenetic, and also are attached to the men who have the best, let's just say they have the best gold member. They're the best gold member, okay? Or the biggest one. Across the board as a collective. It is what it is, Jack. So they ain't not going nowhere. And if your sister and you're in these inner cities and you got a good job, you're making $100,000 a year, $120,000 a year, $130,000 a year, and you want a son man, yeah, you can get one on your level. You most certainly can. But all of y'all can't. And the pickings is slim, Jack. All of y'all can't. Then you combine that with the fact that these sisters are from the same place Pookie and Ray Ray from. They just played the game and got what they got out of the system. They the same chick that was sitting in class next to Pookie and Ray Ray in Miss Johnson's third period social studies class. They the same chick that was playing ping pong out of the rec center on Martin Luther King Boulevard with Pookie and Ray Ray. They from the same place. They just played the game different. So they been attracted to Pookies and Ray Rays. So you take those two factors, the Pick and Slim, and he's not a strange. That was her boyfriend in high school. Her first love was a Pookie and a Ray Ray. So you take those two factors and you end up with situations like this.
The resident who didn't want his face on camera says he witnessed a shooting just 3 floors below his apartment.
And I still didn't really believe. I mean, I've been around guns my whole life, and I don't know if the panes are very thick in this building or if, noise traveled weird, but it didn't really sound like a gunshot. But I'm fairly certain it was, and then I went back outside and I saw him wave a gun.
Officers responded to reports of gunshots at this complex around 3:15 this morning. When they arrived, they saw 32-year-old Jarvis Durrett shooting from a balcony. And there's evidence he was jumping from balcony to balcony before firing a rifle at officers. At least one officer returned fire.
Sadly, we could not address what happened inside an apartment, but it is our quick response that I think that saved our community from a much worse incident.
GBI reports Durrett was found dead on the balcony from gunshot wounds. Inside the apartment, the woman who lived there, Courtney Cox, also found dead. Police say the two had some sort of relationship. It's not clear if Durrett was killed by an officer. Hit a number of other units and even a water pipe in the building, causing flooding to units under the 21st floor and McCrae's Tavern, which is underneath the building. Now, coming up at 6 o'clock, we're going to actually be speaking with a woman who says a bullet went into her unit. We'll have her story coming up again at 6 o'clock. But for now, reporting live from Midtown Savannah Louise, CBS 46 News.
All right. 56, I'm Francesca Emmerker. Breaking news update out of Midtown for you. Christy D is live. You just heard from police within the last 15 minutes about this active shooter situation, Christy.
We learned a lot from police. Both Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and APD Police Chief Bryant was there to give us this information. I'm also giving you our first look at the building where all of this happened. This is Atlantic House high-rise apartments in Midtown, right off of West Peachtree Street. We learned a lot at this last update. Right now, we can confirm that 2 people are dead, a female victim and a male shooter. This all started around 3:45 this morning, somewhere between 3:20 and 3:45 when they got the call about a shooting in the building. Officers were able to respond and be on scene in 5 minutes. But once they got here, they tell us that a person started shooting at them. And from witnesses on scene that I spoke to this morning, there were a lot of shots. Police could not confirm how many, but said there was a lot of damage inside multiple units at this apartment complex. And dispatchers, as police were still on the phone, could hear the gunfire through the dispatch call. Now, over the course of several hours this morning, police were able to contain this individual. Now, we have confirmed that the shooter is dead. They will not confirm his ID, how old he was, any information about him, except that he is now deceased. They have not confirmed who fired the shot that killed him. However, we know this. Right now, Atlanta police did fire shots. That's why GBI was on scene this morning, because an officer was involved in this. And we do know that the shooter fired several shots that residents inside this apartment building heard. In fact, residents this morning got an email saying that they needed to stay in place, to shelter in place, that their elevators are shut down, that the water was turned off. And, as of 30 minutes ago, people who live in this building tell me that is still the case and they are waiting on updates.
That brother, whew. That's one brother. One. And I'm telling you, these buildings, there's not a lot of that element. Most of the brothers that live in these buildings are not from that cloth. They're not from, it only takes one to cause a tremendous amount of damage. And that's why you see why these communities are the way they are, and how idiotic it is to for the people who live in those communities where it's hundreds and thousands of these brothers like this, to get rid of their police because somebody died in another city in police custody. And it's very insidious for a group of people, pasty liberals, that don't live in those communities where it's hundreds of thousands of these brothers. They don't live around these brothers. They live around one of them, and they get incidents like this occasionally. And they call the police, and they're asking for a guarantee, increased patrol. I guarantee they're going to want a blood sample, a hair sample, 6 forms of ID before anybody gets in the building from now on. Beefed up patrols, even though this was obviously isolated. They're going to want everything, the whole shebang. But they'll protest that some people who live in communities where it's hundreds, even thousands of guys like this, and are capable of things like this, to not have police. Because the police are going to problem.
Now, right now, the situation has ended. They say there is no danger to anybody living in this apartment building right now, and it appears from the units that they've been able to survey that no one else was hurt. So they say APD was able to contain the situation to what could have been much worse. Francesca, back to you.
Christy, we also heard from the mayor saying that police officers, social media got more information than police officers did at the time, and she expressed an urgency in calling 911. Correct?
Yeah, they expressed a little frustration about that too, because they need the information to be able to respond accordingly, and social media seem to have more information, and still does, than their officers or the 911 dispatchers. So they urged the public to call 911, put your phones down, stop recording, and call 911 and tell them what you have. That way they stay safe and they can handle the situation and keep you safe. Francesca.
Christy, thank you. Again, this shooting happened at Atlantic House high-rise apartments off of 11th and West Peachtree Street. A gunman is dead. A female victim is also dead. The shooting took place inside of several apartment units as well as outside of the apartment units. And we know that the police did contain this man, and he is now dead. No other information about this person. We'll continue to have updates for you.